reign of King David. It mentions briefly the death of Saul and his sons. It goes into the reign of David, which is the same material that we covered in 2 Samuel, and ends at 2 Samuel with 1 Chronicles, ends with David passing the kingdom over to Solomon, which is where 1 Kings picks up, pretty much the same kind of place. So trying to kind of keep things in chronological order. So looking here at 1 Chronicles then, and we start to think about, okay, what's the purpose of these books? Who wrote these books? What's the purpose of them? What's the message here? What's the message here for the Jews? And what was the message? What could be the message for us? The author of these books is thought to be Ezra and Nehemiah. So this would have been written, as we understand the chronology, this would have been written after the return of the Jews, the remnant of those Jews back from Babylon, back from Babylonian captivity. Been written right around 450 to 400 BC. How do they know that? Well, because they know they look at the descendants of David. The last one that's named, there's a great deal of emphasis on the lineage of David. And so the last one of David that's mentioned is, I think, Ananiah, I believe is the fellow's name, was the last one mentioned. And we know about the time frame when this would have been, if there had been other descendants of David, they would have been noted. And so we get some idea that this was written, again, about 450, about the time of the return of the Jews from Babylon. The title, in the sort of the Latin, it's a chronicle. It's an historical record. In the Hebrew Bible, it's the title of this section is called the Account of Days, which is, again, it's sort of a record, if you will, a record log of the doings of the kings. In the Septuagint and the Catholic Bible, it's known as the Paralipomenon, is the Greek word. It's referring to things omitted. And what do we mean? What's meant by that? Well, things omitted from the book of Samuel, the book of Kings, and other books of the Old Testament. We'll find that about 60% of this book contains material that's given in other books. So the author is clearly using these other books as references. So this is sort of a compilation, if you will. There is new material, but it's mainly a compilation of the Jewish story, if you will. Why write this book? Why did they write this book? Well, the book was written for a number of reasons. Keep in mind what has happened historically here. The Jews have now returned from Babylon. They have returned to a ruined country. Their country is in ruins. Their city is in ruins. Their religion is in ruins. Their king has been deposed and still remains in captivity. And so how do you restart a nation? How do you restart a nation in this condition? And of course, Ezra, in coming back from Babylonian captivity, what was the first thing he did? No, that was Nehemiah, I believe. What was the first thing they did? Yeah, there was some of that, but where was their main attention directed? Rebuilding the temple. Yes. If you read the book of Ezra, you'll find out that one of the first tasks that he undertook was to rebuild the temple. So they wanted to kind of restart, reboot, if you will, their religion. And then, of course, here comes Nehemiah. Nehemiah, as you point out, built the wall around the city, helped to reestablish the city of Jerusalem as a walled city, essentially as a going concern. And they have to try and again rebuild their nation. They have to kind of restart their nation. And so, how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to, first of all, they've got to get a grasp of their history. They've got to know what their history is. They want to legitimize the worship at the temple. They're building this new temple that Ezra's building. They're wanting to rebuild this temple. They want to have a sense of unity. They want all these Jews that are coming back into Jerusalem, into Judah, into those environs. They want them to have some sense of nationality, of national purpose, and so they're going to try and rebuild that, and they're going to show these spiritual causes and effects. What we will see is a real split, if you will, not split exactly, but a real shift of focus. In Kings, we will see the destructive effects of apostasy on a nation. In Chronicles, what we'll see is the presence of God's grace toward these people as they try to rebuild and as they try to reestablish themselves, and what happens when they try to carry out their lives according to the will of God. The theme here, and a couple of themes in First Chronicles. First of all, there is David as the king, and he provides this strong model as the king. You will not find in Chronicles the episodes that you find in Samuel, 2 Samuel, and in Kings. You'll not find, for example, David with Bathsheba, or David murdering Uriah, or some of the other events that took place. No, the focus here in Chronicles is David as the strong king, David as the man of God, David as the worshiper of Jehovah. And so it's a completely different focus, a completely different emphasis here in this book. Yeah. Yes. They had no sense of national, or even of common characteristic, really. You're quite right. I think you're quite right there. Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. We need to have that. We need to have that basis for really who we are, where we came from. And that was, I think, exactly what the writer here in Chronicles is trying to establish. Going back, and we'll see, of course, here in the first chapter of Chronicles, he goes all the way back to Adam and starts with that lineage and takes it through. One of the key verses of First Chronicles here is in chapter 17, 12 through 14. He is the one who will build a house for me, and I will establish his throne forever, and I will be his father, and he will be my son. And I will never take my love away from him as I took it away from your predecessor. I will set him over my house and my kingdom forever. His throne will be established forever. And, depending on who you talk to, this is obviously a reference either to Solomon or to Jesus. I tend to think of it more as Jesus, but as messianic. But there was that sense, that promise there. We get that sense of what's going on. Here's a comment on the context of Chronicles. It says the purpose of these two volumes, First and Second Chronicles, is to review the history of Israel from the dawn of the human race to the Babylonian captivity and Cyrus's edict of restoration. This review is composed with a very definite purpose in mind, to give the Jews of the Second Commonwealth the true spiritual foundations for their theocracy as the covenant people of Jehovah. The historian's purpose is to show that the true glory of the Hebrew nation was found in its covenant relationship to God, as safeguarded by the prescribed forms of worship in the temple and administered by the divinely ordained priesthood under the protection of the divinely authorized dynasty of David. Always the emphasis was upon that which is sound and valid in Israel's past, as furnishing a reliable basis for the task of reconstruction will lay ahead. Great stress is placed upon the rich heritage of Israel and its unbroken connection